Good morning, everyone. This is Rihanna Morgan, VMGM. How are you? I see Musashi in the audience today, and I welcomed him up to be a speaker with me. So, good morning, Musashi.
TM.
Hello. We work together so much that I'm always so excited when we just get to have these nice chats because we're always busy planning, saving, working. And this is just so fun for me. Oh, yay. Yay, yay. And Indefatigable is joining us as well. This is so wonderful. Good morning. I'm going to send you an invite to come join us up on the stage. Well, so I have a really writer-centric, fun program planned today. I've put together a bunch of questions that we can go around and answer and talk about. But first of all, I want to check in with everybody. So good morning, Indy. Good morning.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Yay. How are you today?
I think my wife and I are sick. It's like, luckily
Oh,
we don't have anywhere to be. So it's kind of drinking tea with some local honey and chilling out.
that sounds beautiful. That actually does. I mean, not the sick part, but the drinking tea and just kind of, you know, snuggling in and just being, grab a couple of good books and just read. And that sounds lovely, but I am very sorry that you're sick.
Yeah, I've actually made a dent in Neil Stephenson's last book, Termination Shock.
Ah,
The irony is I got the chance to interview him, and I was supposed to have read the book, but I only got the book like 3 days before. And
yeah.
it's kind of like one of those, 700-page novels. And I tried, but and then I'm talking to him, and he's like, "You haven't read the book, have you?" And I was like, I skimmed the first 3 chapters.
I had zero notice. This is me making it work. Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. So that's really good because I'm sure that knowing you, that's something that you really want to do. And it's something I really want to do as well. But busy times these days around the space. So Musashi, please jump in. Tell us what you've been working on.
Well, right now I'm literally working on my ambulance. That's been my focus of the day.
Is this new information? I think this is new information. You have an ambulance?
Okay, yeah, I mean, it might be new information to some. I've been nomadic for over 15 years, so I have an ambulance, which I call the Jambulance, and that's where I live.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Okay. That sounds thrilling. Thrilling. Okay. So today's show is all going to be about writing and looking back to the beginning and moving forward. So I think what I'll do, I mean, I know that Odd Writings generally comes, and I was kind of dragging my feet a little bit waiting for him to get here, but he might be able to show up pretty soon. And then I know that there are some others who love to come and share their stories, but maybe we'll do this again another day, maybe next month or the next month when we've got, more writers in the crowd because we definitely love to hear from them. And I've sent around invitations to everybody. And so I know Paige Dow is here and Whitney Morgan Media is here and Rihanna Morgan. You can see me, my little icon there, but I'm behind the microphone today. And so let's get started. And I want to say hello to Aksida. And I see that you're there and I sent you an invite to speak. If you are a writer or if you are not a writer and you want to learn more or talk more about writing, please feel free. I sent you a note so that you can join us up on stage. So please feel free if you would like to. Okay. Are we ready? round robin questions. My favorite thing. You can tell I was a teacher. So, first question. What inspired you to start writing, and how did you find your voice as a writer? So let's start with Robbie, Indefatigable, and then we'll move on to Musashi.
It's a funny question for me. I grew up kind of like homeschooled in a small like church cult school. But my mom was an English teacher, so it was like a weird upbringing, but I kind of like developed a passion for reading and grammar and the English language from my mom and the books she had in at home and trips to the library. So I can't remember the first time I started writing like poetry or keeping a journal as a kid. Yeah, so that's kind of how I started. But then I think in my teens, I started like really using poetry to kind of express my feelings. Like I have all these old journals of like all my young love heartbreaks, and like it's really sad. I was like this emo little I don't know. It's just really whatever. But I guess processing that stuff was really important. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got started. But then to make a long story short, it was later on in life, as a part of many therapeutic and creative writing groups that were focused on like self-improvement, that I found sharing in that context. Is it getting louder, love? Um, that the sharing as a writing group was like really positive for me. I don't know. So that it changed the way I look at trying to sound fancy. It became much more about telling the truth in my writing. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. Like I not trying to be fancy, just say it plain.
That is so very true. That is so very true. The speak from the heart writing is very powerful, much more powerful than the trying to sound fancy, like you were saying. And so thank you so much for sharing. And Musashi, what inspired you to start writing, and how did you find your voice as a writer?
Yeah, so a little bit of it is pretty similar to Indy. I didn't grow up with a teacher as a mom, but I might as well have. My sister and my mother were like sticklers on grammar and spelling, and like they taught me that the way that I wrote things made all the difference. Because I might say or write something and my sister or mother come along and say, hey, that's not actually what you think it means. Or I would express something and I mean to go in one direction, but they point out that, hey, there's like 3 to 5 different directions depending on how you, translate what you just wrote. Let alone all the like technical stuff. So, like a part of the passion there, at first it was just being corrected and not really understanding why. Like, let me talk how I want. But later I realized like, wow, that's actually very important. Now I believe in taking your time to speak, to find your words, and giving others the time to speak, to think before even speaking. But I really started getting into writing when I was really getting into, a little bit higher up in schooling. So I didn't do so well in normal school. I'm also like a very against the grain type of person. Like, you're all thinking that way. Okay, I'll go this direction. And so, and I always I was the kid who asked why until they stopped answering. Cause I like to get to the base knowledge of everything, and most teachers don't like that. they do not want you to expose the fact that in the end we don't know. That's not where any of the teachers want the children to hold them, in a place of, I don't know. And so a lot of my writing started going like internally into books, of my own, notebooks of my own, because what I was expressing outwardly was getting me into fights. It was getting me kicked out of school, kicked out of class, put in detention, in school suspension, out of school suspension, and eventually actually expulsion and banning from schools for my writing. So I really went, inside myself with writing, but where I actually like found my voice was, in music. Being able to express something in a way that really only words, they can't express everything that I feel. And the power of music is just like, music's my life. I love it. No matter the emotion, no matter the situation, there's at least one song for it. And so, yeah, I found my voice in writing lyrics, for myself, for writing lyrics for other people. I really found when backed with music, you can feel what the person was writing so much more. And you can just really guide this whole immersive experience, where I love writing that we get to utilize the creativity and imagination of everyone's brain who reads, my writing. And so that's the same guidance that we get in music. It really changes all the dynamics of any situation, and just really felt like I could affect people differently when they read my writing versus when they listened to a song I wrote versus when they just read the lyrics. Big difference.
I definitely hear you there. I really do feel like that music is very powerful, and I find myself loving music that the lyrics are powerful as well. I'm always really those songs, I gravitate towards those songs, and it doesn't matter what genre. If the lyrics are powerful, I'm an eclectic music fan. I don't subscribe to just one place. And I also love music that is just sound, because there are so many moments where that is beautiful, and I love that too. So wow, thank you both of you so much for sharing. And I just want to pause just a minute and sort of reset the room, and we have a new listener with us. His name Ashley. Hello, Ashley. It's very nice to meet you. And this is a conversation. We are just here talking about writing and being writers and sharing our experiences. And Nicobar, hello, hello. And so if I send you an invitation, please feel free. Yes, Indy, please jump in.
I was hoping that you would also respond to the prompt.
Okay, I can do that. And so, yes, our new listeners, if you want to jump up on the stage and share your experience as well, we would love that. We would love that, because we really love celebrating and supporting each other and being writers in the space together. And so, yes, what inspired me to start writing, and how did I find my voice as a writer? So, growing up, I lived in a home filled with books. Every spare wall, every spare shelf, every spare everything. We didn't have art on the wall. You know how some people hang art on the wall in their house. We had books and bookshelves, and books. I you know how little people sleep with stuffed animals. I slept with books, and I couldn't even read them, but I loved them. And I loved them because I grew up surrounded by readers. My mom was a big reader, and she was an advocate for writers and voices and stories. And she's like, some of the best stories you wouldn't even imagine. You can't imagine what you'll hear or what you'll find in the pages of a book. And so I loved them immediately, and I had those little spiral notebooks that you could get for like 50 cents or whatever at the local store. And I couldn't write, but I could make like loops on the pages. And so that's what I did. I would make loops on the pages, and I can remember imagining what my story was. And then I would take my little spiral notebook filled with all my loops and no letters and tell my mom, this is my story. And this is what I made up. And I was a fantastical storyteller. And my mom would say, now, is this a Rihanna story, or is this the truth? And so, it's a Rihanna story. Definitely. And so, I've always been a storyteller. I've always been, someone who wanted to write. And I really wanted my book on the shelf in my own house. And I wanted to go to a bookstore and be like, that's my book, and pull it off the shelf. And then I watched the movie Romancing the Stone with Kathleen Turner and one of the Douglas people, Michael Douglas, I think. Yeah, I think it's Michael Douglas. Yeah. And she was in this village in this middle of nowhere. And she says that, she's talking to, the other characters. And she's like, I'm a romance novelist. And I'm like, oh, I love that sentence with all my heart. I love that sentence. And so that's what I decided I was going to be, a romance novelist. I didn't even know what that meant necessarily, but, and so that's my writing starting journey. And how I found my voice as a writer is I was raised by a single mom. She raised 7 of us by herself. And I am the youngest. And my mom was everything to me. I didn't have a grandmother, a grandfather, or a father. And so she was all of those people for me. And she was the most inspiring and the strongest woman. And I thought when I would read these romance novels that, are out there and so popular, I was like, I can't really stand it that the woman doesn't save herself. Isn't that what they're supposed to do? And so that's what I wrote. Oh my goodness, I have novels, 7, 12, 10 of them that have women who've saved themselves. And traditional publishers, of course, don't like that. They like the other male figure, the hero figure, to come in and save the little lady. And I just don't go for that. I can love and appreciate a hero's journey and a hero's place in the story and the teamwork and all of that can create. But I really, really love the woman that is clever and crafty and strong and able. And so that's how I found my voice, is being raised the way I was with the mother that I had, and knowing that women can be strong and save themselves. And so I love that. And so that's my answer. Thank you. Thank you, Indy, for asking.
I'm so glad you shared, and my mind is like linking commonalities between us, and like reveling in the beauty of being surrounded by books, the joy of being able to tell stories your own way, and going against the tropes and prevalent dominant culture narratives. Big fan of all of that. So very excited to hear more about all of your writing, and Musashi, your music. Yeah, and hi everybody. And look who showed up, Rihanna.
Yay, Odd Writings, yay! We were dragging our feet, hoping that you could come today, because we're doing a round robin, writers round robin today, and I really wanted you to be part of it. And so let me send you an invite and we'll drag our feet a little bit more till you can join us on the stage. And then I'll ask you the first question. You're here just in time. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. And so, Robbie, just to follow up for until Odd Writings gets settled, just to follow up, Indy, I wanted to say the no's that I received from the traditional publishers really prompted me to find a better way, find a different way to share my stories, find a different way to story tell, that would honor writing going forward. And of course I was a teacher, and so I'm always wanting to uplift and wanting to help and wanting to bring others forward together. And I've been writing such a long time that I'm always very aware that there are other people that have stories that aren't wanted in the general populace of the big five. And so I'm like, you know what? There's got to be a better way. And pretty soon I want Odd Writings to answer the question. But then we can talk about what that better way is and what we've been building. So yes, Odd Writings, welcome. Hello.
Hi. Sorry for the very late start. I usually try to get here on time, but I was remiss in that goal.
No worries at all. So like I said, we're doing a writer's round robin today. And our first question is, let me get my paper here. I printed it because I'm an old school lady. What inspired you to start writing, and how did you find your voice as a writer?
Well, let's say that started a long time ago. I tend to write poetry, and I think what it was, and I mentioned this one in another space one time a long time ago. I think it was one of these, but I also read a lot. But when I was young, I was reading The Lord of the Rings, and first The Hobbit, of course, and then The Lord of the Rings after that. And at the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, they have that poem, about the rings, and 7 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 9 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, or 9 for mortal men to die. I don't know. I get the numbers confused, but you know the one I'm talking about. And I loved that poem, and I loved the way it sounded. I loved the sort of the rhythm of it. So I started to write my own poems just for fun. And then I eventually went to college, and I got a degree in software development, and so I was a computer programmer. But doing software development to me was sort of the other half of my brain. And so I wanted to not let the writing part atrophy. And so before every day of software development, I would make myself spend at least an hour reading poetry. Not so much writing, but reading poetry. And so if I did that before I ever went to work, that was a way of sort of like, no matter how late they make me work, they can't take this away from me. I've got my little reading in for the day. And so that, I think reading poetry for an hour every day for years and years, I think that actually helped. Well, you figure it would, later on when I started to write more, because that all those things had kind of seeped into my personality, I guess. And so now I pretty much write all the time, and I don't do any more software development, even though technically I could if I wanted to, but it really I got burned out at one point. So, but yeah, I started with The Lord of the Rings. I started just with that one little bit.
That is amazing. I, of course, know the very poem that you're talking about. I love it. And I love watching the Lord of the Rings movies. This is kind of a sidebar here, but I love watching the Lord of the Rings movies with people who have not read the Lord of the Rings series. And I'm like, oh, that's in the book. That's in the book. That's actually that song. That's in the book. And they're like, what? And I'm like, it's like I know the secret language, or I have the secrets to the universe or something. It's just really a beautiful thing. So not that
Yeah.
I'm trying to be braggadocious or anything, but it's just, fun.
Yeah, speaking of that, the book written by Christopher Tolkien, The Silmarillion, it delves deep into these languages that Tolkien had made up for as a learned linguist and all this. And I think that's actually one of my other loves is etymologies and trying to put that into my poems. And I think that's where that comes from because then I read the Silmarillion. It's like, oh, well, cool. So they're all kind of connected that way. Uh, but anyways, enough about me. We can go on to the next question or have someone else answer or whatever.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. And we of course have some new people joining us. And so if you want to jump up on stage with us, please feel free, just request, and we would love to have you join us in this conversation. And so before I ask the next question, I do want to pause just a moment and ask Indefatigable and Musashi if they would like to share a little bit about, remember that thing that I said, how there's got to be a better way to share our stories. There's got to be a better way to have everyone be able to have a voice, and that there's got to be a better way to preserve literature for the future. Well, this is the better way. Robbie, do you want to jump in and talk about?
Yeah, I feel very infomercial right now. I love it. But all those concerns that you just described are like faced by so many people from so many places. And I think the idea was that we could use some of the new digital tools like blockchain and NFTs to make a better system for that. One of the key elements is composability and interoperability. So those are fancy programming words. Odd Writings knows all about those. But composability means that I can stack tools on top of each other to make them do cooler things than any of the base functions do. And so in our case, we built a document viewer, secure document storage, and all of this is running on a decentralized framework so it doesn't rely on any one entity for the assets to stay alive. This is revolutionary because it's like having a library the size of the world. And then the second piece, interoperability, it means that when people create things using our composable tools, they can go and take and trade and share them anywhere, and anyone can do anything with them downstream. So they want to do a drop or a token gate or any kind of thing, they have full control over these tools, and they're interoperable not only on the same chain, but across all the universe and constellations of chains that are connected and will be more and more connected. So yeah, I think that's a lot of buzzwords, but fundamentally it's about putting the power of technology back in people's hands and making it easier for people to do things that have been out of our reach since Amazon took over self-publishing. I think it's just really what it is, since the big companies boxed everybody out of being able to do this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And so where are we in the process of all of this? At what level are we in the development of this?
Currently, we've just released our very hush-hush alpha testing phase of our new app that has a lot of this functionality built in. And this is the result of 3 years of visioning and 1 year pretty much of focused research with the help of many, many advisors. I was thinking about it recently. I was like, we have really benefited from a significant brain trust. And shout out to all the community members who shared their pain points and their hopes and dreams and the cool things that they wish they could do, and the people who understand traditional business and cash flow management and how a decentralized organization can preserve the technology for people to be able to use. So anyway, we're now open to accepting advanced feature users who will be giving us feedback on the system, testing out the minting capabilities and the interactive capabilities and the purchase capabilities and the chat feature that's gated to each asset, but also lives on chain. All the really cool stuff that we've been testing out. So it's kind of like it's definitely for experimenters, but Web3 writers are those people. So I'm hoping people hop on. I think we have like 17 signed up users right now. And I know. There might be 2 accounts of me testing, but I think it's really cool.
That is really cool.
I saw Odd Writings hop on the other day. I hope Odd Writings, you have found ways to give us feedback for all the things that are needing remediation. But yeah, that's where we are. Thanks for asking, Brianna.
Of course. Okay, so let me ask the next question. Okay. Can you share a memorable moment in your writing journey that shaped your approach to storytelling? Or a memorable moment in your writing journey? And let's start with Indy and Musashi, and then Odd Writings. Let's just go in that same order.
Mine is sort of deeply personal, maybe, but or no, not nah. Anyway, I was part of a writing group, and they're all people who had messed up in life in some way or another, and including me. And so we were in this writing group and we were writing fiction, and I had the idea. I was like, oh, let's put all our work together in an anthology, and I'll do illustrations for all of the pieces. And everybody who was in the group was so stoked to see their illustrations. I remember it being really cool. But I read some of the stories and I was blown away. And my story was kind of a futuristic thing. I think it's published also on Read Me Books. It's called Getting Out. And I don't think I'd ever written a sci-fi short story before. So it was my first one. But anyway, the reason it felt really, I don't know, formative or memorable was when the other people in the group read it and saw things in there that I didn't, or were attached to little moments that I had. It was just really fascinating to have my work live in other people's minds who also shared my circumstances and experience. And that felt, I don't know, life-changing. I was like, oh, this is something really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that piece right there, that's very powerful, where someone can see a glimpse of you in what you've written, even though it's possibly fiction. I think that's powerful. And I hope that there's a way that we can capture that a little bit with PageDAO so that people can have that feeling, because that is a super powerful feeling as a writer and a reader. Yeah. Musashi, please.
Can you give me the exact question again?
Yes, I can. I almost did. And then I thought, I don't know. Yes. Can you share a memorable moment in your writing journey?
Okay. I guess this kind of touches on a little bit of what you were talking about earlier, Rihanna, and a little bit of what I already shared earlier. I have to put my tinfoil hat on right now too. So, warning, back up a little bit. I spoke about how some of those things that I shared verbally in school that were kind of against the grain, that some of the teachers didn't really like. Later in life, I realized, some of these things I figured out and spoke were not just being censored by my teachers. They were being censored by our government. They were being censored by corporations. They were being censored by the Big Five. And so I realized that even if I write this down, it doesn't mean it's going to get out there to the people. And so this kind of like, this changed. This is a big reason why I backed away from writing altogether. Not only was it, it was an emotional, traumatic experience, and that kind of pushed me away from that, but it was also some of these things I just can't write. Like the other people who did get published who wrote about this no longer exist. And the people who tried to publish but never got out there were just blocked and censored. And so I realized that with the technology that was around me, I was having songs stolen. I was being censored. Websites were being taken down. Social sites were being taken down. There was a great deal of power and money behind these Big Five publishers who have a great involvement with certain 3-letter agencies in our government. And they have controllers. That includes investors and all that, but the tinfoil hat part, yeah. C-A. Oh, did I cut out? So that changed a lot of things for me. And it's been until now that I've been waiting, and now I have to start digging up some really old notebooks because I get to finally publish them and be anonymous and have people see it who I want to see it without any censorship, without anybody knowing who put it out there so they can't stop them from putting anything else out there, and no taking down my website.
Yeah, those untold stories, I think we are going to really find are very powerful, and they tell a different history, I think, than what we have been informed of. And I always find it very interesting to talk to someone who fought in Vietnam. My dad was a Vietnam vet, and my uncles and all of that. And if talking to them is a different story than what you read about when you're just reading in a history book, And so it's just a different voice. And I think those voices are so important to us. The different stories that we hear. And Musashi, I saw you put your hand up again. Please jump in.
Yeah, I just want to mention one other thing. Thank you. It was also touching on what you mentioned. The reason why I today am in the process of and I am starting a comic book print shop. And that's because of the narrative that is pre-written for us. If you don't write according to the narrative, you don't get published. And so all the comic books, just like Rihanna said, there's always got to be some dude who swoops in to save the damsel in distress. And that's what they pump to their audience. It's not that that's what their audience wants. This is an agenda. And it's the same in all the comic books. Unless it's completely independent, they all have this theme that is, you're not a hero, I'm not a hero, no normal people are heroes. Y'all need to just shut up and stop trying to save the day because there's some superhero, superhuman, or outside of human that's going to come save you. And I think that's a part of their agenda. And I believe that our stories, our lives tell a completely different story. Single moms, they're heroes. Single dads are heroes. Kids are heroes. All the people in this chat, you're all heroes. And you've been different types of heroes at all different types of your lives. On the other side, we've all been villains too, but that's not the point. So that's a big reason why I've kind of changed the way that I'm going about things, the way that I'm writing, and how I want to reestablish the narrative that the people prefer, what I want to write, what you want to write. And we become the heroes of those stories.
Oh my goodness. Yes, 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 yes. And my favorite, like some of my favorite stories, are the other side, the other story, like, Maleficent. I love that story. And Wicked. If you've known the story of Wicked, I don't want to give anything away, of course, because I don't like doing that for people, but it tells the other side. And, sometimes those stories are so powerful. And then to jump over to Tolkien and talk about, the smallest people saved the world. The smallest people saved. And it was the smallest person who did it. And, that's so powerful. And I just, I don't know, would Tolkien get published now? I don't know. Would he? Who knows? Because I don't know if his story fits the narrative, and it could arguably be one of the best stories of our age. And so it's just, so important. It's so important that we do this. So, I know that the path is long and the winding roads are a struggle, but Paige Dow, Man Alive, we're going to change the world. So yes, Odd Writings, please share a memorable moment.
Well, for me, I have a couple of memorable moments that indicate how I've changed my writing style, and they all have to do with Web3 basically. During 2020, during the big disease, you can tell I haven't woken up yet quite. That's when I started to write a lot more poetry. And so what I did was, I'm not a famous person in the literary scene. And so I didn't even try to get a traditional publisher. I just went straight to, self-publishing, which at the time was Amazon, and, which is, still around, and Smashwords and a couple other ones. And the way I tend to write poetry. So the way that people write poetry is they have a book and it has maybe 30 of their poems, maybe 50 of their poems, and then it goes out in that one book. And so then you try to sell that one book. And selling is a different, capability than writing is. And I found it, quite difficult to sell my book. And then when I realized when people were starting to make NFTs, a lot of people were already self-publishing on social media their poems individually, like on Instagram. You got the Instagram poets and, Twitter and so on. And so it seemed pretty straightforward that they could make NFTs out of an individual poem. And then I realized, well, from a crass kind of capitalistic point of view, if you want to call that crass, I realized, hey, I could, instead of having 30 poems in one book or 50 poems in one book, I could have 30 to 50 NFTs and try to sell each one individually. So would that be more monetarily efficacious, or efficient, compared to just doing the one book? And so I figured, well, maybe I can sell more this way. And so I started to do the NFTs individually. And then I realized that because, so that was one thing that changed my practices. Like I was concentrating more on individual poetry NFTs as opposed to conglomerate, poems into books. But the second thing was that once I got more into Web3, I realized that the ability to communicate and to go into different genres, it was much stronger if you had small pieces of writing. So for example, if I want to go on an online gallery, I can take a poem I've written, put a nice graphic backdrop on it because people seem to like the graphics, and, stick it up on a gallery. And so that reaches a whole different audience for my poems. And if I were to still go about with the Web2 way of having a single book, I can still do it, but it would be the one book would be one NFT, which I know Paige Dow is great at. You have the reader with the PDF reader, and you can flip the things back. So that's got its place for the long stories. And it could have this place also for collections of poetry, but for me, it makes more sense to have the poems individually. But in any case, the very fact that I can take a poem in Web3 and I can make, I could put it in a gallery. Or what I've been doing now is making little short films out of them. So I'll use AI generated video, and then I'll have the sound of the poem in the background and have that appear. And then at the end of that, have a little QR code that appears. And if people scan the QR code, then it goes to a blog that I've written. And in that blog, there's other info about the poem, as well as a link to a Web2 book that will include the poem. So I'm kind of mixing the two now. I've got a Web2 book on Amazon. I've got a number of them, but the latest one, for example, each page also has a corresponding NFT. And so people can go back and forth with the QR code. So that has greatly changed the way that I write, because I'm using the technology in these ways to try to ease the marketing effort and also reach a larger audience. So that, to me, I'm not sure when exactly these ideas dawned on me. The one I remember the most is just looking at the way people were selling NFTs and translating that to poetry. That I remember as an instance that that changed the way that I write. I guess I'll stop there. My brain's kind of fading away.
That is amazing. That is amazing how you're taking the I don't know, ways of the future and blending it with the traditional approach. And I love that. That resonates with me so much. And in fact, Whitney Morgan Media, I don't want to toot my horn too much or anything like that, but Whitney Morgan Media, that's its entire reason for being, is to help people who want to publish traditionally, but also utilize these tools of the future. And so, yes, Indy Fatigue, please jump in.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I did want to ask Odd Writing. So, like, the alpha that we just released has minting support for PDFs right now, and obviously it can be any asset that gets minted and any number of secret assets that get minted. So kind of like the old Cent days where it was like, have unlockable content or whatever. Except in this case, the unlockable content would be all potentially embedded within the viewer that in different ways. So I was wondering whether adding video and static image and or other formats would be beneficial at the NFT level when you're minting using our platform. We've had requests from other people for EPUBs because they prefer that format, and I know a lot of poets do both video, so they can have kind of like them reading the poem or some kind of thing like that. So I don't know. I was just interested in your thoughts there, but don't let me derail the conversation, Rihanna. I'm very curious though.
No. This is all part of the conversation. And so I know that you're wanting Odd Writing's opinion, but I'm going to share mine too and say, yes, that would be so beneficial. That would be so beneficial.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that particular aspect. That's actually, I'll have to think about it more to determine if I like it or not. My immediate sense is that I like it, because I could see somebody, for example, there are a few people that prefer the text and they actually don't want the graphics in the background. And some of the verse, for example, they have it's a Web3 group of poet writers, poets, and many of them prefer text only. But the vast majority of people I know prefer graphics because they're not so much into the poetry. So actually I could see something where, for example, I have a poem and it starts off as text only. And if they buy that NFT, then it would unlock, a visual version of that same poem that then would appear in their book. That's kind of an interesting take. I'll have to think about that. And it's very original. So that's a good deal.
All right. Adding to my notes.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. My mom was blind at the end of her life. And so I love the idea of being able to add audio to anything I do so that, she's long ago she passed away, but she's not the only one who, is blind in their life. And it would be wonderful to be able to share, um, an audio version of what I create or what all of us create so that, our audience members get to appreciate, what they cannot see. And so, like with the 7 Love Stories, literary NFT collection that I created, I found a mentor. I wouldn't stop looking until I found a place that could have audio included. And then all of us, the artists, everybody, we all talked about, the work that we did and the stories, and I read the story. And so that to me is so important. And, I try really hard to, anything I do or anything I put together, I really would like to be able to read it. And so that takes me to my memorable event. And, I have many memorable events in my writing journey. It all kind of loops back together to this. But I can remember being in my, 7th grade math class. And we moved a lot from town to town. I'm the daughter of a army guy. And, gosh, my math teacher was mad at me because I was reading in her class. Oh no. Anyway, and so she came over and she ripped the book out of my hands and she slammed it on the desk and she said, "There's no future in the pages of a book." Well, I have, that sort of scars your heart a little bit. And when I published my first book with, Simon and Schuster, The Wanting Heart, I sent her a copy and, reminded her that, of her words and how, cutting those are. And, then when I became a teacher, I, made certain that my words uplifted and cared for and loved, even if it was something I didn't understand. I tried very hard all the time to cheer for my kids, all my kids, my natural kids who live in my home, as well as my kids who sit in my classroom. And so, those are very powerful. And that was hugely memorable for me. How horrible that felt to sit there and feel that, sort of forced shame. Anyway, and so that really created me as a person, like I'm never going to act like that. I'm never going to do those kind of things to people. And I'm not going to ever take away, something that they love like that. That's just horrible. And then, something that Robbie, you were talking about, reading with, people you've shared a collective experience. And, last year, a couple of years ago, I guess now, I wrote, a ghost story, and it's actually published. It was the first one that I did with PageDAO, and it is oddly biographical, autobiographical. But people don't know that unless they know me. They think it could easily just be a nice story that you read because it's enjoyable without knowing me. But I read it to my children and they're like, "Mom, that's you. This is you. This happened to you." And, because they know the stories, some of the stories of my life. And so that feeling of that kind of powerful experience is so rich and so powerful to me. And so I really love, that connection with the reader. And that's not something that you'll find with every reader. But it's definitely a way to reach a reader's heart, I think. And Isn't that what we do? We reach across time and space and all walks of life and touch someone in their heart. And I hope my message is always that I love you. I hope that's always my message. Anyway, so yes. What time is it? Oh, I have 10 questions, you guys. We do not have time for 10 questions. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, Odd Writings. We did not get to hear what you've been working on just here recently. Everybody kind of went around and talked about what they're working on today. Do you want to jump in and share what you're working on today?
Yeah, well, essentially every time I do a new project, I try to change it around a little bit. And most of my previous projects have to do with palindrome poems and word unit palindrome poems. And the current one I'm working on is not that, because I have noticed that there is kind of a subgroup of people that they like sort of erotic literature, not completely all the way erotic, but just enough to sort of pique their interest. And I thought, well, this is an interesting subgroup because it lends itself really well with the graphics in the background of the poem. And so I decided for my next book, I was going to sort of have them as the target. So my NFT and kind of see how it sells, because I've heard all these stories about, actually the people that write the naughty stories, they're the ones that a whole bunch of people buy online and you don't necessarily hear about it. So I don't know how true that is or not, but I thought, well, this might be kind of a interesting experiment. And it would also help to broaden my horizons a little bit to try to, to change the way that the write poetry, because I do love writing the palindrome poems, but at the same time, I don't want to limit myself to just one thing. So this is a way for me to sort of expand my capabilities while at the same time experimenting with the marketing aspect or whatever. So currently my book is called Digital Friends 1, and I put the 1 in there, kind of like, oh, there's going to be a second one, but actually I don't know if that'll be the case, but I figured, well, I don't know. Like that's something I did. So it's out. It's you can pre-buy it on Amazon, and it's similar somewhat to the palindrome poetry in which each page has a corresponding NFT. Now for the palindrome ones, it was a little different because my concern there, my interest there was to find out how AI would interpret things if it was just backwards. So for example, if I take most of these poems are 223 words long, and the reason they're exactly that length is because on the palindrome, that means I've got 111 words and then one central word and then the original 111 words backwards. And 111 is evenly divisible by 3. And so that means, for example, I could have 3 words, the first 3 words, and then have AI generate an image from those 3 words. Then if I use the same seed but simply reverse the order of the words, how does that change the way that the AI interprets it, or would it change it at all? So that was for the palindrome poem projects, that was the essence of that. So the NFT that you could buy for each page would be, what the AI, got from those 3 letters, from those 3 words rather. So this book, Digital Friends 1, is radically different. Each poem, each page itself is a short poem, and then I'm mixing that with sharing it with Twitter groups that have this erotic, there's a certain erotic groups, and so I share it with them, and so I try to get them interested, and maybe they'll buy the normal book, maybe not. But in any case, that's what I'm currently working on. And I have a deadline there, like way in the future in December, but I don't think it'll take that long. Because I've learned from previous projects not to set the deadline too soon, because because then I run into a problem if I've misestimated how long it's going to take. But yeah, that's my current thing. Digital Friends 1, and I've got them on lots of these NFTs are spread across lots of different blockchains to further spread the people listening or reading. And I'll stop there because, again, I still have it. The copy is still percolating in my brain. And I feel, the more I talk, the more I kind of disintegrate. So I'm keeping it there for now.
I think you're doing a great job. I can't tell that you're disintegrating at all. It sounds amazing. And you're so inventive and so clever. And I can definitely see the analytical, logical part of your brain mixing over with the creative, inventive part of your brain. I just love that. That's so amazing. It's so amazing. Well, guys, we're at the top of the hour. Oh my goodness. This is crazy. It went so fast. I'm glad I looked at the time. Otherwise we'd just be here blabbing away. Anyway, so there's something that I want to bring up for Vagabond Magazine, for Vagabond Media. Our next issue, our September issue of Vagabond Magazine, honors writers. And we want you to tell your writer's story. And so what I would say right now is go ahead and follow Vagabond Magazine here, this little icon on Twitter, and then on X. And then I'm going to pin a post there that is an open call for writers to tell their story. And you can tell as much or as little as you would like. It can be open to the very beginning, what inspired you to become a writer, all the way through your writer's life till now. You can include links of what you've written, places you would like people to go and visit. Please just share your story. And it's an open call, so everyone can jump in and share their piece. Everything is due to us by September 10th, and there will be a submission link. That's part of what I'm working on today, and we'll talk about it a lot in the coming weeks. But please get started on it, get working on it. You can include covers of books. You can include AI art. You can include anything you would like, because we want to celebrate what you are doing. And we definitely want to include you in our September issue. And so I know that as Rihanna Morgan, I'm going to put something in, and I'm hopeful that everyone else does. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Rihanna Morgan, the icon that you see there. I am editor-in-chief of Vagabond Magazine. And we can't wait to celebrate and have an entire issue, all celebrating writers and the writer's journey. And so please feel free. Okay, so since we are at the top of the hour, let's go ahead and end this space the way that we traditionally do, in honor of our beloved CD Demitio, who lives now in Japan and is hopefully going to start up a Web3 Writers on the other side of the planet. But I still want to honor his exit to this. And what it does is, what we do is we just go ahead and open our mics, everybody who's on the stage, and on the count of 3, we say aloha together. And aloha it means hello, goodbye. It's love and care for each other. So 1, 2, 3.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Much love, everyone. Goodbye till next time.